Hi everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of today's News in Depth. We're going over the agenda for the Board of Supervisors for the 10th. That's tomorrow. I'm with Supervisor Richard Forster. Richard, Supervisor, we were talking about the tree mortality, and there are still a few more things we could probably talk about. When you talk about the amount of trees, this seems like a very expensive, or would be an expensive project. How's this going to shake out, or what's going to happen?
Well, the state will come up with some funds, but I think we're looking at realistically probably asking for a federal disaster or emergency declaration to try and get more funding involved. A couple things I want to point out. The governor is taking this seriously. If people want to go online, they can go to the executive department, look at the governor's proclamation of a state of emergency. I find it a little bit schizophrenic, though, that the governor has appointees on boards, and I'll tell you a couple of them right now. The Air Resources Board, this article that came in, Air Resources Board punts wildfire emissions from climate pollutant strategy. So the Air Resources Board, the governor is saying right here that these trees create a lot of danger and a lot of momentum for disastrous wildfires, and yet the Air Resources Board will not consider this as much of an emergency and include the emissions from wildfires into their calculations for climate pollutant strategy. How can you not do that? These are appointees of Governor Brown. The other one, when I was on the tour talking to a Board of Forestry appointee, the statement that the person gave me, and I'm not going to put the name out there, the statement they gave me was, well, this isn't the first time we've had bark beetle problems. We've seen something like this before, and it's been bad. The governor says in his resolution, recent scientific measurements suggest that the scale of this tree die-off is unprecedented in modern history. And yet you have a gubernatorial appointee talking basically in the face of this resolution. If you can't get the governor's appointees to buy into this, we're not going to solve the problem. If they don't think it's as much of a problem, how can you not, after being in a helicopter ride? My answer to that person was, this is catastrophic. Didn't you get that out of this tour? I guess not.
Okay. Maybe they need a few forest fires close to them or something like that to realize how dangerous the forest is when it's a timber box.
I think the governor needs to be removing people from some of these commissions and putting people on that adhere to his own resolutions that he's putting out for emergency declarations. So I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Next up, we have Mike Israel talking about Public Health and Safety Grant and Loan Program. This is a policy the board put together. These are excess funds that are left over from some of the applications we make for community projects and things, and there are monies left over. The problem is when people need them, they always want them for free. They want them as a grant. You're going to exhaust all those funds out, just like the water supply fund. If we give everything out as a grant, we exhaust those funds. So the discussion will be how to use those funds in the future. We just had this come up in a recent case that discussion was going back and forth, and well, can we give them the money? Aren't there policies in place? And so we're going to discuss this policy.
How much money are we talking about, and how many grant applications?
It depends on the projects. They come up sporadically, so I think the last one we got, you're probably talking maybe 10,000, maybe 50,000.
Well, could you give us an example of what a project would be?
One was a person that was very low income, had a house with a bridge going to the project, and she could not afford to fix the bridge. So it's a life, health, and safety issue.
Okay.
But at the same time, whose responsibility is it? Is it the county's responsibility, or is it the landowners? It probably is the landowners or the homeowners. It's tough to solve, though, sometimes when you're talking about a safety issue, a life issue, when the person can't afford it. So.
Okay.
Next one will be a big one, the state of Jefferson. And maybe we'll have music along with this one too, but I don't know. This is a great idea, but as one of the emails even said to me, I hope you support this, even though there's probably not a snowball's chance that it's going to go forward anywhere.
several years ago, I believe the last election cycle, there was a ballot measure that would have broke the state up into 6 parts. I'm not sure if Jefferson would have been one of them in that.
I don't think it ever made it, though, to the proposition.
No, it didn't.
Right.
It fell off. But it was actually, I kind of think maybe it did go all the way, but it was no one was behind it. There was no education on it or anything like that. So maybe in one sense,
Well, the problem
the state
here
of
is-
Jefferson is just trying to educate people here. Is that
Yeah.
that might be what's going on?
Well, the problem is even if we pass this, it has to go through our state legislature, and both the Senate
Right.
and the Assembly have to pass it, and then it's got to go to the feds, and Congress has to pass it.
Right.
Probably never going to happen. Not going to happen in this state, and I doubt if it'll happen at the federal level. There's probably a way to do something in the future, but I'm not sure this is the way. The other thing, I agree. I think the argument is a wrong argument here. Yes, our ability to run our own affairs in Amador County is affected by the state, but it's affected because we don't have enough legislators that think more along the lines that we think.
Right.
Even meet us halfway on issues. We don't have that. Highway 16 relinquishment is an issue, but you know what? Highway 16, the relinquishment would have gone forward even if the state of Jefferson passed and we were in it, because the relinquishment occurred in Sacramento County. So we wouldn't have had any say-so about it then. There's definitely issues, but the issues fall at the redistricting. My opinion is the redistricting is the biggest problem. Because, and I argued this point with Senator Dave Cox, God rest his soul. I love Dave Cox, but the one point I disagreed with him on vehemently is redistricting. I told him, you're going to make the Republican Party, the way you're doing it, the minority party forever. And his viewpoint was, no, we need to do this. This is the right way to do it. We're going to protect our people. Well, you're protecting the people, but only those that can win their districts outright without a battle. That's not the way I feel it should have been done. And redistricting caused the problem that we're in today. We need to get back to redistricting. The problem now is who controls the redistricting? Right. The Democratic Party.
I also feel that when we created the new districts, and like Berry Hills district that runs basically just rural, in the rural counties, and we just have one say-so. But when the districts would go into a bigger an area that had more voters that was city-like, we had more representation in that sense, and the other legislators would listen to us as well, right? So we had, in a way, we had like more voice when the districts were coming across the rural with some cities. Now, obviously not large cities, but bigger than Jackson or.
And I agree with the one vote, one county concept, but I mean that ran through the courts 50 years ago. That's not going to change now. It's been determined that population is what drives how many votes you get in the legislature. That's not going to change. The way we change it logically is through redistricting, so we have to advocate for better lines to be drawn.
Now, just to throw something up, because I was interested in the 6-state thing, and I find it's very interesting that a state as large as California only has like 2 senators, and that's cool because it's one state. But when you stop and think that we have 26 senators in the original 13 colonies, it's pretty hard to get anything out of the that the Northeast doesn't sign on with or is on board with, because
well, be careful what you ask for, because you may not like the other load of senators you get on if we go away from the 2 senators per state. The Congress is built on per district. You get so much representation.
Right.
There's one more issue. There's a couple more that are going to be very interesting, but the most important is going to be the Andes Winery change that they're asking for, going from a change from R1A single-family residential and ag district to A ag district. This would allow them to have more by right uses. It would allow them to have 150 unlimited 150-person events, plus I think it's 10 or 12 450-person events per year. It would allow them to do packaged foods. The discussion of the Planning Commission was kind of go with the use permit, allow them to have some of these things. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. I need to really dig into this some more. I've read it, but this is a difficult subject. The bigger issue comes down to, should the winery ordinance be changed as to what is allowed? Because what's happening is, as Planning Commissioner Ryan pointed out, Amador County still has relatively cheap land, relatively, compared to Napa and Sonoma. So what's happening is people are turning their eyes on Amador and saying, let's buy that, we can do what we want to do. And as he rightly pointed out too, and this is probably the case in Napa though, is a lot of people buy the land, put in a winery, put in vineyards, even if it's not very many, and have somebody manage it. It's gone away from the traditional person that runs everything.
Or family-led type
That's
winery.
right.
Okay, so to a bigger business. Okay, and how about shortly on the last item, which is also a planning thing
Well,
as
we
well?
have two items. One is just a 10-foot public utility
right.
easement, merger and abandonment. That won't take much.
Okay.
But the other is the Ardito Family Trust, and they're asking for, I think it's 110 acres to go in, 111 acres to go into the California Land Conservation Act. This is the Williamson Act. The Ag Advisory Committee concurred with that and said that it was a great idea. I think it's a great idea. The only problem now is we don't get reimbursed for land that goes into the Williamson Act, like we used to be reimbursed at a rate from the state. So anyway,
we lose taxation money.
it's still a good idea. We want as much land as we can in Amador County to go into a Conservation Act.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Okay,
and
Tom.
If you're interested, be sure to make it to the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. And it sounds like a very interesting meeting. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tom Slavic, and we'll see you again next time.
You're watching Amador County's local